Hi, we're going to have a little fun today. Instead of my normal style of content, we are going to go through some of your comments. I'm going to respond to some of the comments and, of course, answer some of the great questions that you guys leave in my comments. So don't go anywhere. Hi, everyone. I'm attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Colorado, and welcome back to All Up in Your Business. Before we dive into your comments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check the description for links to additional information and resources. All right, let's get into it. So J Love asks, if you have an LLC with another member, can you still just make member contributions and not do the loan option? This was on my video, how do I contribute money to my LLC? Yeah, it doesn't matter if there's one member or multiple members. If you're giving money to the LLC, it can be either a member contribution or a loan to the LLC. If you don't want it to be a loan, then it can be a contribution. Deborah Brittenham asks, she said, Aiden, great information. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. My question for you is, after I form the LLC, how do I obtain the insurance you mentioned? I think it's very important to be protected. Also, how can my son take over the business in the future if it's formed as a single member LLC? So the first part, how do you obtain insurance for your business? Talk to an insurance broker. I suggest starting with whatever company or broker you have, maybe your car insurance or your home insurance or renter's insurance with, whatever insurance company you already work with. Talk to them first and see if they offer some kind of, if they offer business, general liability insurance or professional liability, whatever kind you need. Because of course we can get some bundled discounts or maybe some other benefits by sticking with the same company for all of our insurance policies. If that doesn't work, if they don't have those options available, then look for a insurance broker in your area or talk to maybe some colleagues or friends who are in business and see who they may recommend. But the answer is you'll want to work with an insurance professional. I suggest an insurance broker who's not captive to one company so they can shop around and find you the best rates and the best policies. That second question, how can my son take over the business in the future? This, for the most part, is an estate planning issue. An interest in an LLC, our ownership interest in a single member LLC is part of our, it's an asset. And when we die, that asset becomes part of our estate and it will be distributed in accordance with our will or our trust, or if none of those exist, then in accordance with the intestacy laws in the state that you are a resident of. So if you want to make sure your interest in an LLC goes to a specific person, then you want to talk to an estate planning attorney or a wills and trusts attorney, someone who can help make sure that those directions and instructions are laid out properly. So whatever you want to happen after you die will happen. Bria, I'm going to go Bria. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. Asks, is the trademark application fee refundable if it is rejected? No, it's not. That trademark application fee that we pay to the USPTO is non-refundable. Doesn't matter what happens with the trademark after that. If it gets registered, then great. But if it gets rejected or is otherwise not registered, we do not get those fees back. Oh, this one's nice. Ricardo says, I came here for business advice and now I need a lawyer because you stole my heart. Good one, Ricardo. That's pretty smooth. Deja asks, I have a LLC and am also a sole proprietor under my legal name. I want to file my sole proprietorship as my trade name for my LLC. Is that possible? I want to file my sole proprietorship as my trade name for my LLC. So you certainly can register a trade name for your LLC. And if you're operating a sole proprietorship under that trade name, you can register it under the LLC, but it'll no longer be a sole proprietorship. It'll be a trade name of the LLC. Your surgery sister says never file in California. It's $800 a year, no matter what. You're welcome. Can confirm it is at least $800 a year if you are registered as an LLC in California. If you can avoid it, California is not necessarily the cheapest or easiest state to do business in. However, just because it's expensive doesn't mean you can get out of it. If you are operating the business in California, then you probably still need to register it in California and pay all of the associated fees. But yeah, she's right. It's at least $800 no matter what. Shelby says, finally, the perfect video for what I was looking for and not super boring. Thank you. I assume you mean it's only a little boring, but at least it's not super boring. Thank you, Shelby. I appreciate it. Rin 2 times asks, I have my brand trademarked in Tennessee, but I just moved to Mississippi working out of my home. Do I need to change the address on my trademark info before getting a business license in Mississippi? Right? MS, that's Mississippi. Missouri's MO. Yeah, Mississippi. Okay. So these are two completely unrelated things. And I'm assuming you are talking about a state level trademark registration, not a federal trademark registration, but a business permit or a business license is independent of a trademark. So it doesn't really matter. You don't need to do one before the other. Obviously, I guess you do have to do one first, just because that's how things work. You can't do two things at the exact same time. I don't think it really matters which one you do first. I would, I guess, get the business license first. That way you have that done before you start operating your business, and then you can update the address on your trademark registration. But if it is a state level registration in Tennessee, that state registration isn't going to extend to Mississippi or any other states. So it could very well be that initial registration in Tennessee is no longer going to be useful for you if you're not operating in Tennessee anymore. So I would suggest talking to an attorney who's licensed in Mississippi or a trademark attorney like myself if you want a federal registration that will apply everywhere. Jack Williams says, what a golden tan you've achieved. Nice job. Thank you. Thank you. It's partly bronzer, but yes, I have been spending a lot of time at the beach. I appreciate you noticing, Jack. Silent G asks, what about review videos that use the trademark logo of the tool that is being reviewed? So this question came up on the fair use video that I posted recently. Fair use in the context of that video has to do with copyrights, but there is a concept of fair use that applies to trademarks as well. It's kind of similar, but works in a different way. The gist of it is if you're not using the logo as a trademark, so if by reviewing a product and putting up the logo, you're not using that logo as a source indicator of your video review. You're not using it as a trademark. The tool company uses it as a trademark, but you're not. So yeah, if you're reviewing a product or a company, if you're talking about some other company and you use their logo in that review, typically that's not going to be a problem as long as you're, again, not using it as your own trademark. And if you're not implying some kind of affiliation or endorsement or some false connection with that company. With commentary, product reviews, most of the time this isn't going to be an issue. I'm so confused whether I want to be a single member on the EIN form, but when I click that, it's telling me that I would be a disregarded entity. What is that? Okay, so on the EIN application, if you're obtaining an EIN through the IRS, as a single member LLC, the IRS considers this a disregarded entity, which is exactly what it sounds like. They're disregarding the LLC form, and through the IRS's eyes, they're taxing you as if the LLC doesn't exist. They're disregarding the LLC. They don't care. The IRS doesn't care about limited liability. They care about the income and taxes. So they're taxing you as if you're a sole proprietorship. which is the same in the tax world as a single member LLC. So you'll be taxed at the personal level on the profits and losses of the LLC. Good question. SBT has asked, why are you talking like that? LOL. I don't know. That's how I talk. Why are you talking like that? Brownin329 asks, can you launch your podcast after filing an intent to trademark, an intent to use trademark, or does it have to be fully trademarked? So yes, you can and should launch your podcast after filing an intent to use trademark application for your podcast, whether it's your podcast name or whatever it is. With an intent to use trademark application, you have to start using the trademark before they'll actually register it. Because, can you guys guess what I'm about to say? A trademark isn't a trademark until it becomes a trademark. The USPTO won't register a trademark until it's actually being used in commerce, because it's not a trademark until it's actually being used in commerce. Michael CMK1, would setting up, for example, 5 different businesses under a DBA than a single member LLC be a good idea? Setting up 5 different businesses under a DBA than a single member LLC. I'm not quite sure what this is asking. I think you are asking, can you use 5 different DBAs as opposed to an LLC? And would that be a good idea? You can. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. If you're using a DBA or a trade name without an LLC, then you're not getting any of that limited liability protection. So is it a good idea? If you don't care about your personal liability, or if your liability risk or exposure is relatively limited, then a DBA or a trade name is, it's not that big of a deal. If you want to take some steps to protect your personal liability, then the LLC is a better idea. Truckerman asks, if I change the name of my LLC, certificate of change, do I need to change the bank account? Is it going to be the new name on the check or the old one? So if you change the name of your LLC, you'll want to let the bank know of that. Most banks, I believe, won't make you open a new bank account because it's still the same business, just the name has changed. And on checks that you're writing, you should have the new name on any of the checks that you're issuing, because that's the name of the business now. So we want everything to have the correct name. Carlos F. asks, if I choose not to register my logo on my website and someone makes a claim, do they have to first let me know via a cease and desist letter, or can they just straight out sue me? So I think what he's asking is, if I don't register my trademark and someone tries to sue me for trademark infringement, do they have to send me a cease and desist letter? No, someone can just jump straight to, taking formal legal action. Most of the time, though, we're going to start with a cease and desist letter, because most people want to avoid going through that whole legal process if possible. And if a cease and desist letter can resolve the issue, then great. So no, they don't have to, but typically they do. I have a DBA and an LLC and a registered entity. Trying to figure out if I should open a DBA business bank account or LLC account, which would be better. So the banks don't distinguish between a DBA account and an LLC account. As far as I know, you can have a business bank account. Not sure what you mean, though, and a registered entity. An LLC is a registered entity. And if the DBA and LLC are separate, so if the DBA isn't registered to the LLC, then I'd imagine those are 2 separate business operations. So you should have 2 separate bank accounts. Did anyone ever tell you you look like Sarah Carter, that right-wing commentator on Fox News? No, never heard that. Not familiar with her. I don't know what she looks like. Hopefully she's not unattractive. Thank you. Anyway, if you do your taxes as partially self-employed, does that automatically mean I will itemize, or can you still take the standard deduction? So yeah, if you're self-employed, you don't automatically have to itemize your deductions on your taxes. You can still take a standard deduction. Necessary Media in a comment to my video of the real benefits of trademark registration said, I mean, let's be honest. It's worth it just to be able to flex the R registration symbol near your brand logo. People love symbols. So true. That is sometimes a benefit. Just a small flex, just a little, I got a trademark registration. I'm legit. Good point, Necessary Media. What would suffice as proof for money spent on food as a business expense? We can show the purchase of the food, but what would be used to prove it corresponds to a business expense? Okay, so this was a comment on my video about tracking business expenses and related to deducting business expenses on your taxes. So how do you prove if you're deducting an expense for food? How do you prove that that's business related? Great question. There are different ways you can do it. What I like to do, if I'm, let's say, having lunch with a colleague or a potential client, or if it's a business meal, I will keep the receipt, of course, and I'll handwrite on that receipt who I met with, the purpose of the meeting, maybe a quick note about what we discussed. You can also do this in your bookkeeping software. Like if you use QuickBooks, you can upload a receipt, I believe, or scan a copy of the receipt to the program and make a note. Gorilla Game says, you're a 10. I assume he's talking on a scale of like 1 to 100. So thank you. Just a Kid from Brooklyn has asked, question. If you do a member contribution to your LLC, are those funds taxable come tax time? Great question. No, a member contribution isn't considered taxable income to the LLC. I'm in the middle of creating my own name brand out of my YouTube channel. Great support, love for the YouTubers. And I'm thinking of getting it copyrighted and trademarked. My question is, if the source or the name of my business and or channel is already in the design of my logo that I would put on t-shirts, would that be considered a trademark because the source or the name of my channel of my business is in the image or logo that I would be printing on shirts? Yeah, it doesn't matter if the name is in the logo. If you're using the logo as a trademark, then it would be considered a trademark. If your channel name, if you're using your channel name for your channel, that's also considered a trademark. And you can use your trademark in any form that you want to, on its own or within a logo. So as long as it's a trademark, then it's a trademark. It's not a copyright though. Well, I shouldn't say it's not. It's probably not a copyright. 99 out of 100 times with a logo, it's a trademark. Not quite so often do copyrights apply to logos. Influential Finance asked, do all classes filed show up on the USPTO site when you initially file, or do you typically have to wait until your trademark gets reviewed by an attorney for your classes to appear? So what he's asking about is when you submit a trademark application to the USPTO and it goes into their public database, do all the classes that you identified on the application show up initially? Yes. There's some lag time between when you submit the application and when the details are on the public database. But yeah, all the info for the most part that you include on the application is going to be part of that database, and it's going to be publicly available. So all of the classes that you indicate on the application are going to be part of those records on the USPTO's database. Can I write LLC after my DBA name? Example, my LLC is registered as Shoe Shine LLC. My DBA is Shoes Don't Shine LLC. No, that's not the proper way to use a DBA. Your DBA shouldn't include the LLC because it's not, the DBA isn't an LLC. The LLC name includes LLC. So a LLC doesn't protect your business name? Nope. An LLC does practically nothing to protect your business name. The only way that it does kind of protect your business name is that it will prevent someone from forming an LLC with that exact name in your state. But filing or forming an LLC has no effect on your trademark rights in that name, and it won't prevent anybody else from using it outside of that very specific circumstance of someone using that exact same name in that same state. All right. I think that's enough for this round of responding and answering to your questions in the comments. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this. I know you guys asked a lot of really great questions in the comments. I wish I could respond to each of them individually. I just can't. It would be far too time consuming. And frankly, some of your questions are kind of confusing. And a lot of the times the answer is, I don't know, or it depends. I would need to get a lot more info from you in order to answer any of them. So I hope this is a good way of addressing some of those common questions that you guys pose. That's all for this episode, folks. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'll respond to it on the next one. And again, don't forget to check the description for links to additional information and resources. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I will see you next time.